Good evening all of you. In our today's botany lecture, we will take a very small and important topic under the chapter plant kingdom. What is that? Life cycles. In which organism? Plants, that we have to take. Coming to this topic, why we have taken this topic? Because this is a gist of the complete chapter if we will take. For example, if I am taking some general characters of a plant, how we classified the organism under the plant, can I say generalized feature is what they are photosynthetic, which will be applied to every division of the plant kingdom. So with that beginning, let me to say you some of the basic points to enter exactly into that topic of life cycles in plants, and along with that alternation of generations we have to deal in. So what are that important initial point we have to consider? If I am taking the word alternation of generations, so which generations we are talking in case of the plants? We are talking about the sporophyte and the gametophyte, right? Alternation means change. Sporophyte or sporophytic generation change into the gametophytic, and gametophytic, if it is starting with, it has to change into sporophytic and keep on making a cycle in case of the plants. Now what are the more terms? Let me to make you clear, I am taking up the important points first of all, which will help you to understand the life cycles which are related to the topics given under the chapter plant kingdom. From that we are having these two basic terms, one is a sporophyte, next is a gametophyte. Keep in your mind, wherever the term sporophyte is coming, that means it is diploid, and where the term gametophyte is coming, that means haploid. And what is the responsibility of the sporophyte? It has to make the spores, right? And what is the responsibility of gametophyte? That has to form the gametes. This is a role of a sporophyte, this is a role of the gametophyte, right? Next point, what you have to keep in your mind as a note, if I am using the term zygote, if I am not taking some special feature apomixis, right, or if I am talking about the other exceptional cases, I am not taking that. Generally the zygote we are taking as a diploid diploid cell, which will be unicellular, and gamete as unicellular, but it will be haploid, right? Means zygote and gamete both are unicellular, but zygote will be diploid whereas gamete will be haploid. Fine. So I repeat, we are generalizing some of the things to understand the life cycles in detail, right? Next thing you must know, if I am taking the divisions, can I say mitosis is there as a cell division, which you call it as equational division. Equational division means their chromosome number remains same, and meiosis you call it as reductional division, where chromosome numbers are going to reduce to half. Mitosis can happen either in haploid cell or even it can help in a diploid cell, means it helps to divide. Whereas meiosis will happen only in case of a diploid cell, right? Mitosis can happen both in haploid or diploid, whereas meiosis will happen only in case of the diploid cells, right? So these things you should keep in your mind if you want to understand the life cycles of the plants. And why we are learning the life cycles right now? Because it is like just a conclusion of the complete chapter is given in that pages. Fine. Now, after all these generalization, one more fact let us learn. You have gone through the chapter biological classification. In that chapter, according to R.H. Whitaker, how many kingdoms are there? 5 kingdoms. If I say first, what is that? Monera, 5 kingdom classification. Let me to write here. It will include Monera, then after that Protista, right? Then after that Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Right now we are dealing in which kingdom? That is a plant kingdom, which you call it as kingdom Plantae. Fine. Now further classification, can I say Plantae kingdom is divided into the 5 divisions. According to the higher studies, further the Plantae kingdom is divided under the 5 divisions. Let's see what are that 5 divisions. Under the plant kingdom, the 5 divisions are: number 1, Algae, Bryophytes, which include Bryophytes, then Pteridophytes, Gymnosperms, and last is the Angiosperms. Fine. So what we have to do? We have to study the life cycles of all these divisions in this life cycles, right? So all the life cycles of all the divisions we have to discuss. Keep in your mind, you have taken all the division under the plant kingdom, because these divisions, the plants, what they include, they are photosynthetic, they are independent, they can make their own food. So keep in your mind, if I am discussing their main plant body, if I am discussing, right, in Alga, it will be a gametophyte. Means if you are taking its vegetative cells, you will find their cells are haploid. If from such parts we are getting haploid number of the chromosome, that you call it as a gametophyte or a haploid cell. Fine. And the main plant body of Bryophytes, again it will be what? Gametophyte. Whatever you will learn features of the alga in this chapter, that all features belong to their gametophyte. Whatever features you will learn for Bryophytes, that is again belong to the gametophyte. What are that feature? I will come gradually on that with some lines or the introduction of that when I will start exactly with the life cycles. I repeat, I am telling you about some of the important points so that you can easily understand the life cycle. Till now I didn't enter into the life cycle part, right? Now for the Pteridophytes, main plant body, what you are observing in a nature, like ferns are there, that will be what thing? Sporophyte. Can I say it will be diploid? And these two are what thing? Haploid. In Gymnosperms, again it will be sporophyte. In Angiosperm, again it will be sporophyte. I already mentioned you what is the feature or what is the role of gametophyte? Formation of gametes. What is the role of sporophyte? For the formation of the spores. I am giving you one example, like alga is there on the stagnant water, like a slippery type of a stub. I hope so you have seen the alga on the stagnant water. Whatever vegetative part you are taking for there, it will be having haploid number of chromosome. If you don't have an idea what is an haploid number of chromosome, let me to show you like this. For example, suppose my these 5 fingers are the 5 chromosomes. You know that every chromosome have its homologous pair. So if I am taking this 5 will be its homologous and making 5 pairs. This will be diploid. If I am taking this 5 separate, this will be haploid, this will be next haploid, right? If you are having every chromosome only one type, that will be haploid. If you are having 2, you can say the chromosome of same like homologous chromosome, that will be diploid, fine. So gametophyte is having only one set of the chromosome, sporophyte will have both, fine. Now if I am taking alga, if I show you some pictures of the alga, these are some examples of the alga. Can I say in the alga the gametophyte will be of variety. It can be unicellular. What is this unicellular one is? This is the chlamydomonas and this will be unicellular, fine. This will be colonial form. In one many members are there. What is an example over there? Volvox, right? This is which type of form? Colonial form. This example is of Spirogyra, which will be what thing? Filamentous form. Can I say it become multicellular? Now coming on this point, these are the kelps, which belongs to brown alga. Obviously it will be the massive bodies. So can you see we are having varieties of the gametophyte in case of the alga. It can be unicellular, it can be colonial, it can be filamentous, it can be the massive bodies. Coming back to this point, I was discussing alga. Whenever you see in your environment, it will be a gametophyte, fine. Now I am talking here regarding most of the categories, what is shown, I am talking about that part. Next after this, if I am taking bryophytes, in bryophytes what type of gametophyte they will be having? They will be showing this type of the gametophyte, right? Can you see one category is having this flat type of structure like a shoe on the ground. This type of you call it as liverworts. What you call it as? Liverworts. And the one which is erect, that you call that category, you call it as mosses. So gametophyte of bryophyte can be of two types, liverworts and the mosses. This part is the sporophyte, which I will discuss later. Only focus on this part, which is dorsiventral compressed like a shoe on the floor. So these are liverworts, and here you consider only this much part which is representing the gametophyte. The sporophyte is originate later in their life, right? So keep in your mind, it will be having this structure initially in our nature. Then after this, I said you, what is there? Pteridophytes. Wherever you find pteridophytes, their part, what is there as a dominant main plant body will be sporophyte. Let's see respectively sporophyte of pteridophyte, gymnosperm and angiosperms. If I am taking for pteridophytes, it will be like this. Big leaves will be there. On that you are having this sporangia. This can you see like a small elevations are there on that. That you call it as a single, you call it as sporangium, and plural of that you call it as sporangia. This is in case of the ferns. But the leaf, the complete leaf, that you call it as what thing? Sporophyll, right? But in some case, for example, in case of equisetum, the sporophyll is making compactly a cone-like structure. It is consist of many sporophyll, and each sporophyll is containing sporangium on that, and such type of sporophyll is clustering together to form the cone. This cone, even you call it as strobilus. Fine. So this type of structure you will find in case of Pteridophytes. Now coming to the Gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are the tall plants which will be usually in the alpine region, and they are having the cones. This you call it as a cones, which can be the male cones or it can form the female cones. For a plant, male and female cone can be present on same plant. Such plant you call it as monoecious plant. For example, in case of pinus, and in some cases it is present on different plants. Such condition you call it as dioecious. For example, in case of cycas. I repeat, the sporophyte of Gymnosperms will be like this, and that sporophyte, instead of flowers, in Angiosperm you will see flowers, but in case of Gymnosperm you will find this cones. The cones can be male or it can be female. If male female are on a same plant, that is monoecious condition, example is pinus. Different plant, dioecious condition, the example will be cycas. But keep in your mind, in cycas they are not forming female cones. Only megasporophyll or the sporophyll is there carrying the sporangia on that. Fine, we are not going here with that part. Coming back to the life cycles, we have to say that once the sporophytic structure is clear to you, then the next intermediate structure we can discuss, right? So just keep in your mind what are the Algae, what are the Bryophytes, what are the Pteridophytes, and which one are the Gymnosperm and Angiosperm. This is about the Gymnosperm. In case of Angiosperms, what are there? Can I say they are the flowering plants? Can I call them as a true flowering plants? Can I say flower is the essential part of the plant, as it is involving in the reproduction. But here the complete plant bodies, these are complete, I mean to say vegetative parts, they are what? Sporophyte, and in the reproductive part which are gametophyte we will discuss. Okay, now coming back to our main thing here, we are discussing in the life cycles of these 5 division, being these are plant, whatever you will find in the nature their vegetative structure, just now I discussed with you with respective divisions. In Alga, the main plant body is gametophyte, independent photosynthetic. Bryophyte, gametophyte will be photosynthetic. In Pteridophyte, sporophyte. Gymnosperm, sporophyte. Angiosperm, sporophyte. Now it never means if this is having gametophyte, they will not show sporophyte. Even they will show the sporophytic generation. That's why you call their life cycle as alternation of generation. So can I say for Alga, what will be the intermediate structure form over there? Can I say it will be the sporophyte? And here in Bryophyte, intermediate structure is what? Sporophyte. Pteridophyte, what is an intermediate structure form? Gametophyte. And here again gametophyte. And here again it will be gametophyte. Fine. So can you see here whose the main plant body is gametophyte, in between the life cycle they will form the sporophyte, and whose main plant body is sporophyte, they form in their life cycle gametophyte. Now who depends upon whom? Obviously I have written in green part, that is photosynthetic, that will be independent. But I have written as intermediate stage, that will be dependent upon the main plant body. Here sporophyte depends upon gametophyte, here even sporophyte depends upon gametophyte. But in pteridophytes, keep in your mind, in case of pteridophytes, here both are independent and photosynthetic, mostly they are photosynthetic, right? And here the gametophyte you call it as prothallus, fine. And in gymnosperm, angiosperm, gametophyte depends upon sporophyte. Here even gametophyte depends upon the sporophyte, fine. So here the main plant body you should know, wherever the main plant body is there, it will be independent, and whatever in between their life cycle, whatever will form, it depends upon the main plant body. But in pteridophyte, keep in your mind, both are independent. This one is always independent, but gametophyte is mostly photosynthetic. Why the word mostly we have used? Because you will learn within the chapter some of the exceptions, right? So just keep in your mind, here both are independent only in pteridophyte. If you go lower to that, here sporophyte depends upon gametophyte. If you go higher in evolution, the gametophyte depends upon the sporophyte. And according to this graph or flow chart, can I say, if we are moving from Alga towards the angiosperm, the complexity in gametophyte will decrease. The gametophyte is becoming less complex if you are moving from Alga towards angiosperm. Then what thing is becoming more complex? That will be sporophyte. What is the main plant body here? Sporophyte. Like if I give you the mango tree and ask you to count the number of cells, you cannot count, it will be much more. That is its sporophytic structure, which is well differentiated into root, stem and leaves. But if I give you their gametophyte, like for example pollen grain is a male gametophyte, you can easily count, it can go up to maximum 3 cell stage. If I am talking female gametophyte, that is embryo sac, it can go up to 7 cell stage, means you can count their cell. If you can count their cell, that means it is less complex. So I repeat, from Alga to angiosperm, the complexity of gametophyte will decrease, whereas complexity of sporophyte is going to be increase, fine. So keep these points in your mind, only then you can understand the life cycles, right? Let me to take the previous slides even. So what we have discussed in the beginning, keep that in your mind. Role of sporophyte is the formation of spores. Role of gametophyte is the formation of the gametes. Keep in your mind, zygote is diploid, gamete is haploid, and both are unicellular. And two types of division will happen in life cycle, mitosis and meiosis. Meiosis always happen in a diploid cell, whereas mitosis will happen, either it can happen in haploid or even it can happen in the diploid cells, fine. And next thing, just now I discussed with you that who depends upon whom. What is the main plant body due to which you have categorized all this division under plant kingdom, being they are photosynthetic. Obviously those who can make their own food, that will be independent, right? So now coming to the topic, we started with that life cycles in the plant. In life cycles, I repeat, I said you, there will be alternation of generation. If the gametophyte is there as a main plant body, sporophyte will be formed and sporophyte again will form the gametophyte. And that way the life cycle keeps on going from one generation to next generation. Fine. Let's start with all the life cycles here. 3 life cycles you will find. And keep in your mind, by convention, you have to read the life cycle clockwise. And when you will see the distribution in the life cycle, you will find some margins like this, right? And you must know, to these lines, whatever is on a upper side, that will be the sporophyte. Lower side will be the gametophyte. Upper side will be the sporophyte, downside will be gametophyte, means gametophytic generation. Here even sporophytic generation, gametophytic generation. The first life cycle we are going to take is the haplontic life cycle, right? Second, I am taking haplodiplontic life cycle, and last I am taking what thing? Diplontic life cycle. Now these life cycles depends upon 2 things. One, just now I said you who depends upon who, right? If the sporophyte depend upon gametophyte, can I say gametophyte is a dominant phase in the life cycle? So one feature is that which will decide the life cycle. Second is the duration. How much time the gametophyte will take in the life cycle and how much time sporophyte is taking in the life cycle. When you will see this, can I say it is like a pie chart in a mathematics, which is telling you about the duration here for the different phases of the life in case of plants. If I am taking haplontic life cycle, can you see the much duration the life of the haplontic life cycle members are spending in gametophytic phase, and much less time they are spending into the sporophytic phase. Where this haplontic life cycle is found, this is present in case of most of the algae. And just now I said you, according to previous slide, if you remember, in alga what is the main plant body? Gametophyte. And in between plant body form is what? Sporophyte. What is a gametophyte? Haploid. Sporophyte is diploid. Gametophyte forms the gametes, sporophyte forms the spores. Now coming back to this part, if I am taking most of the alga is showing haplontic life cycle, alga basically having which type of main plant body? Gametophyte. So I must start reading this life cycle from this phase, that is a haploid phase. Can I say gametophyte will be here? And I said you what is the responsibility of gametophyte? Formation of the gametes. So it will form male gamete, this line is indicating male gamete, and even it is forming the female gamete, 2 gametes, male and the female. And that process you call it as what thing? Gametogenesis. That process you call it as gametogenesis. Why they are fusing at one point? Because later they have to show syngamy, means they are going to be fused. Fine. Once they are going to fused, which structure will form? The structure form is the zygote. Do you remember I said you zygote is diploid? So obviously it will come in the sporophytic stage, and this zygote, which is a sporophyte, depends upon the gametophyte. If you remove the zygote from the gametophyte body, the zygote cannot be developed. Now here a special thing happened to a zygote which is not happening in these 2 cycles. What is that? It will show the zygotic meiosis. What it will show? Zygotic meiosis. If I want to say or I want to add one more thing in this slide, like meiosis, let me to say you here, meiosis, their types are 3 types. What are that? Zygotic meiosis. I am taking for the types of meiosis, zygotic meiosis, sporic meiosis and gametic meiosis. Zygotic meiosis takes place, just now I said you, in most of the alga during the haplontic life cycle, and this is taking place obviously in rest of plants from Bryophytes up to the Angiosperms, right? And where the gametic meiosis is happening, this is happening mostly in case of the animals. So we will not take about gametic meiosis here, we will discuss in the plant life cycle zygotic meiosis and the sporic meiosis, right? So 3 types of meiosis in plants, we will discuss zygotic and sporic meiosis. Now, if I am taking this haplontic life cycle, here zygote undergo a special thing which is not happening in other cycle. What is that? It will undergo meiosis. By meiosis, can I say what is going to be formed? They are forming haploid spores. Can I say this haploid spore will be the first cell which enter into gametophytic phase, and they will multiply by mitosis and forming this gametophyte. In all the 3 cycle, once the meiosis has to take place, only once in the life cycle. I am saying life cycle, I am not saying in the lifespan. In the life cycle, once meiosis is there, rest all is happening by mitosis. For example, if I am asking you, the gametophyte are forming the gametes by which division? Mitosis. And spores are forming gametophyte by mitosis. Then where meiosis is happening? Meiosis is happening in the zygote. That's why haplontic life cycle, what is important here? It will show zygotic meiosis. That's why there is no embryo form in most of the alga. They are non-embryophytes. Are you clear with that thing? So this is the haplontic life cycle. Why? Number 1, here only unicellular sporophyte will form, and that sporophyte depends upon this gametophyte. Number 2, the time period of zygote or the sporophyte is very less. What is more in its duration? The gametophytic generation. That's why it is what type of life cycle? Haplontic life cycle. And next is a haplodiplontic life cycle, which is happening in the examples like if I am taking the Bryophytes, Pteridophytes, and there are some exceptions to the alga which is showing haplodiplontic. What are that? To learn that examples, I am giving you one mnemonic in the few alga. What will be that mnemonic? K-E-L-P, kelp, where K stands for, right, where K stands for kelps itself, brown alga, E stands for ectocarpus, L stands for laminaria, and P stands for polysiponia. These are showing which type of life cycle? Haplodiplontic. As I said you, Bryophytes are basically the gametophyte. So we have to read this life cycle from here. Gametophyte will form male and female gametes. By which process? Gametogenesis, right? And after gametogenesis, what is there? Syngamy, fusion of male and female gamete. After fusion, what it will forming? Zygote. But zygote will undergo mitosis here, not meiosis. Then where meiosis will happen, we will discuss in between. But keep in your mind, in complete life cycle, once meiosis, rest all will be mitosis. So here zygote will undergo mitosis to form sporophyte. Means embryo will form, then sporophyte. And if you remember this structure, right, I already mentioned you that this is a bryophyte and this is a sporophyte which is formed later. and it is having the foot, seta and the capsule. What thing is here? There it is having here it is having, let me to take with this color, it is having the foot, seta and the capsule part, and in the capsule they are having spore mother cells. Fine. Even here in there they are having spore mother cells. Fine. So this is gametophyte. Sporophyte depends upon the gametophyte. Now coming to this part, so this is what we have discussed. Sporophyte of bryophyte depends upon the gametophyte. It can be, the sporophyte can depend partly or it can depend completely. Right? Completely in which case? In case of liverworts. Partly in which case? In case of the mosses. Right? So sporophyte will depend upon the gametophyte, in which case? In case of the bryophytes. Right? Now what sporophyte is having? Spore mother cells. It will be a diploid and it will undergo which process? It will undergo meiosis. So which meiosis is happening here? Sporic meiosis, because zygote is undergoing mitosis here. So it is having which type of meiosis? Sporic meiosis, and sporic meiosis is happening both in case of haplodiplontic and diplontic life cycle. Now when these spores are forming, can I say again it form what thing? Gametophyte, and the life cycle completes. As sporophyte depends upon gametophyte, we call it as haplodiplontic. First haploid, then diploid, but equal duration is there for the haploid as well as diploid. A proper structure is forming in sporophyte as well as gametophyte. That's why this life cycle you call it as haplodiplontic. If I want to discuss for pteridophyte, same cycle I have to read. But I said you pteridophytes are basically sporophyte. So you have to start reading from the sporophyte. I said you the sporophyte is having sporophyll, sporangia, spore mother cell, and spore mother cell will undergo meiosis, and intermediate structure which is independent mostly will form, can I say here, gametophyte. Here what thing is there? Gametophyte will be known as prothallus. Prothallus. Thallus means in pteridophyte the main plant body is well differentiated, but gametophyte is not well differentiated into root, stem and leaf. That's why you call it as prothallus, which is mostly independent, green and photosynthetic. And what is the responsibility of gametophyte? To form male and female gametes. After fusion, they will form zygote. Zygote undergo what thing? It is undergoing mitosis, and again we are getting a sporophytic pteridophyte back again. So where meiosis happened here, again the sporomeiosis happened. So what type of life cycle in pteridophytes? Again it is showing haplodiplontic, same duration for gametophytic and sporophytic generation over there. Last we have to discuss diplontic life cycle, where it is happening. What will be the examples over here? Here the examples for diplontic life cycle will be Gymnosperms, even the Angiosperms, and here add on we will take the alga name. What is that? Fucus, right? But here we mainly discuss about Gymnosperm and Angiosperm. What is the basic plant body here? Sporophyte. So we have to start discussing it from the upper side. So here what is the main plant body here? Sporophyte, both in Gymnosperm and Angiosperm. What is the responsibility of sporophyte? They have to show the meiosis in their spore mother cells to form the spores. If you remember, We are having in the plants microspore and megaspores. Microspores in case of the male, megaspores in case of female. Microspores help in formation of the you can say the pollen grains, whereas the megaspores help in a formation of the female gametophyte. So just the general thing you should know, after meiosis haploid spores will form, which is a first cell enter into gametophyte like other cycles, and that will create a gametophyte, right? And that gametophyte, if I say male gametophyte, what you call it as? You call it as pollen grain, right? Both in gymnosperm and angiosperms. And in context to female, you call it as female gametophyte, but you call it as embryo sac only in case of the angiosperms. You cannot call it as embryo sac in gymnosperms. So this gametophyte will form male and female gametes which fuses, and syngamy will happen, and due to syngamy what will be there? Zygote. Zygote undergo mitosis and form embryo. Embryo is forming back again sporophyte. So can I say the main is the diploid or sporophytic generation here, and very less time, and this gametophyte depends upon sporophyte. That's why this life cycle you call it as diplontic life cycle, right? So like this we have completed the life cycles, 3 life cycles we have completed regarding the plants. Haplontic life cycle, diplontic life cycle. In between that two we have discussed haplodiplontic life cycle. If you will see the generalized thing what I have discussed initially, then it will be very comfortable to understand which phase depends upon which in which division. So this is all about today's class. Thanks a lot, students.